I'm like, not even once all day do you crave sex? She's like, no, never think about it. I go, what about your boyfriend? He goes, well, when he prompts me, then I'll go there, but I don't just sit around thinking about it. So we don't want to shame ourselves either if we're not set up to be sexual. There's no should there, but sexual energy is creative energy, and that is your appetite. So you have an appetite for food, right? You have an appetite for water, right? Well, if you don't have a sexual subtype, then you dang well, if you don't have the affection subtype or the connection desire or you gotta have some of that, because I'll give you an example. Baby humans and baby monkeys, for example, there's lots of study on this that aren't touched, they aren't hugged, they aren't loved. They never grow as big. They're not as big, they're not as smart, and all the parameters of human growth. So giving and receiving is a part of, and you don't have to have sex with somebody to love them, right? But it's a nice desire to have. But it doesn't mean you go acting on it either. Especially if you're a man, most men, I was told long ago, if you're a man and, especially if you're with a partner and you have desire, somebody walks by and turns you on, leave the fantasy alone. Like I told you in some previous videos, just leave it alone. But don't add logs on the fire and keep adding thoughts to the involuntary thought that came up. That'll be a whole video about involuntary thoughts versus voluntary thoughts. Just like involuntary breathing and voluntary breathing. Those are the two things you can control. So, and you can control how often you, quote, have a climax. And if you're a woman and you're watching this, help your man, and you could help yourself too if you're that type. But a lot of women gain energy through intercourse. And a lot of men lose it. So there'll be other videos on like the interchange during that and making sure that a lot of men I know, they don't understand, but if they're with the wrong woman, then they feel drained afterwards too. Even if they are in a good relationship, sometimes there's a configuration issue. But if you want to have the maximum output, and there's lots of videos on YouTube, Rumble, on the web, lots of data and science on this. So don't use your creative energy as an excuse to go to sleep, for example, or waste your energy, because then the consequence down the road is if you have this much vitality, it could shrink. And then people wonder why. So the last example of this is I had a client with Lyme many years ago, and he was a young man with a great partner, and she was 20, I think, and he was 25. And, they had that look of the happy couple, the well-sexed couple with that glow. And he had Lyme. And so I was looking at them and I'm like, how often are you, releasing? And he's like, oh, pretty much every day. And I go, okay, well, you're young, but why don't you try something for a week? So I went and did it for a week, and he came back, and I said, try to correlate your symptoms before and after you ejaculate or release. And so he had 7 days to try with her, and he came back for 7 days, and he's like, my muscle aches and problems and pain are definitely worse when I ejaculate more rather than less. So that's what you get with Craig Lane is we're not looking at studies and theories. We're looking at who's getting results and why. And can I duplicate it for cheap and easy? So we look at low-hanging fruit therapy, I call it. Let's pick the low fruit from the tree first before you have to climb up there, right? And that's the way you should do health. That used to be called first do no harm in medicine. And they don't have to soothe that oath anymore. That's not an oath that's required, I hear. I don't know because I'm not a medical person. And I don't even want to be because, the system's kind of broken in the favor of the capitalists. So there you go. Creative energy is sexual energy. Use it wisely and you will have a more satisfying life.